When we think of revolutions, we usually picture pure chaos, right? Sudden, explosive, totally unpredictable. But what if they're not? What if, underneath all that, they actually have a structure, a system, an anatomy that we can dissect and understand? So that's what we're going to do. Let's dive in and figure out what really makes a revolution tick.
I mean, that's the big question, isn't it? It's the one thing movements are desperate to figure out, and the one thing established governments are terrified of. In this explainer, we're going to break down the essential pieces of revolutionary warfare to get a whole lot closer to an answer. Okay, first things first, let's get on the same page. We're talking about revolutionary warfare. And this isn't just a protest or some riot that gets out of hand. No, this is a dedicated, organized effort by a group that's not in power to challenge and ultimately overthrow the group that is. It's basically the playbook for turning the world upside down. So, where does something this huge even start? Well, it's not with guns or some brilliant strategy. It starts with people. The absolute heart of any movement is its identity and the motivation that gets it going. We're not talking tactics yet. We're talking about the raw, human element that gives the whole thing life. Think about it. How do you turn a bunch of disconnected individuals into a single, unified force? You build a powerful, shared identity. And you do it with things you can see and feel. Flags and uniforms. I mean, that creates an instant visual split, a very clear us versus them. Then you've got oaths, mottos, rituals, and these things work on a much deeper level. They create this almost sacred bond, a feeling of belonging that's so strong, it's worth fighting for. But just having an identity isn't enough. You need fuel. People don't risk everything for nothing, right? That motivation, that engine, comes from some really powerful places. The hope for political freedom, the absolute desperation of poverty, the deep fire of religious belief, or that powerful call for national independence. These are the things that turn quiet unhappiness into an unstoppable force. Okay, so you have a motivated group with a strong identity. Awesome. But how do you actually direct all that energy? Well, that brings us to the command structure. You can think of it as the movement's nervous system. It's what handles all the coordination, the control, and ultimately, its survival.
And when it comes to structure, you basically see two main models. On one side, you've got your traditional hierarchy, like a classic army with a general calling all the shots. Super efficient for giving orders, right? But you take out that leader and the whole thing can just fall apart. On the other side, you've got leaderless resistance. This is more like a decentralized web. It's way, way harder to destroy because there's no single head to chop off. But trying to coordinate everyone to do the same thing, it can be a real nightmare.
So a lot of movements find a kind of middle ground, the cell structure, and it is a brilliantly effective way to stay alive. You have these small, independent groups operating in secret, and here's the key. They don't know who's in the other cells. Communication is strictly limited. That means if one cell gets caught, they can't give up the entire network. It's a design that's all about protecting the leadership and keeping the movement going no matter what.
All right, we've got the people and we've got the organization. Now for the really big question, how do you actually win? This brings us to the playbook itself, where there are two major and very different philosophies that have really shaped modern revolutions. And you can see a real clash in thinking here. On one hand, you have Lenin and Trotsky. Their strategy was forged in industrial Russia, and it's all about a swift, ruthless takeover. Build a secret, airtight organization and just destroy the state's power. Show no mercy. For them, negotiation is just a stalling tactic. Then, in a totally different corner, you have Mao Zedong. His vision was shaped by China's huge rural population, so it's all about the people. He believed you can only win if you have popular support, and that you have to fight a protracted war. Basically, use time as your greatest weapon. It's a focus on winning the political battle, not just the military one. You could call it a surgical strike versus a slow rising tide.
So, after all the fighting, all the strategy, all the sacrifice, how do we even know if it all worked? What does victory, or failure for that matter, actually look like when the dust settles? Let's take a look at the final results.
It's not as simple as just win or lose. The reality is that the outcome is more of a spectrum, and the only way to measure it is to go back and look at the movement's original goals. A successful revolution is one that actually achieved everything it set out to do. Partially successful means they got some of what they wanted, maybe some reforms, but not a total overthrow. And failure, well, that's pretty straightforward. None of their big goals were met.
So at the end of the day, here's the big takeaway. From that first little spark of an idea to the final outcome, revolutions have a clear anatomy. They have a heart, That's the identity and motivation. They have a nervous system. That's the command structure. And they have a brain. That's the strategy. They really aren't just random acts of chaos. They're incredibly complex systems, all designed to achieve a very specific goal.
And that leaves us with one last, and maybe kind of unsettling question. If a revolution really does have a blueprint, if it has this clear anatomy that we can study and understand, well, can one be engineered? Could someone just follow the formula? That's definitely something to think about.